Just a little bit of background. I've worked in housing and homelessness for over 10 years and I do it at a senior level. There's nothing more interesting than hypocrisy, right? So we got a situation where the Labour homelessness minister happens to be our landlord, and oh my gosh, she actually increased the rent. Now, I've seen articles along the lines of, isn't she a bad person, brackets evil, forever increasing the rent, and look how much the property is worth. Like, that's relevant. Now let's change this situation, right, to something more realistic. Say if you, whoever's watching this video, let's just say that you've got somewhere that you can rent out, and let's also assume that you would rent it out to make some money, right? Most people are going to rent it out for, guess what, market rates. So let's just say that you start off renting out your flat for, I don't know, £100, just for the sake of argument, right? And then you think, oh damn, the market rates are £500. Would you change the rent to £500, yes or no? Or would you keep it at £100? Realistically. And if you're going to keep it at £100 instead of the market rate of £500, would you need a very good reason? It'd have to be friends or very close family, right? There you go. Would you give that person the opportunity, saying, listen, this is what the market rent is, that's what it's going to go up to. Can you afford it, yes or no? And then if they can, then it's happy days. You're getting your market rate. You're not selling it over, you're not selling it below, you're selling it at what their property's worth. And if they can afford it, then they will. And if they can't afford it, where real life gets in, if they can't afford it, then the reality is they need to go somewhere else that they can afford. But isn't that the situation in absolutely everything at all times in a capitalist environment? If you can't afford something, you go somewhere that you can. So that might mean you commute a little bit further out for somewhere that you can afford in today's environment. Or you might need to do a few more hours at work, whatever it takes. You go to what you can afford. What I find most interesting is this holier than thou perspective that most people, including landlords, don't want the full price for their property, and they're not doing favors for friends necessarily. They are running a business, and they are the people that are directly connected and directly affected. So hypothetically, you might look at somebody else and say, yeah, if I was them, I wouldn't be charging them the £500. I'll be charging something between 100 and the 500. Well, why would you? And let's be honest about it. Why would you? And really, would you? So if we're gonna get realistic, it's like going to Tesco. How often do we go in there and say, no, you're gonna have all of that money?
Of course.
Realistically, now let's come on. Right, so as a quick summary, it's not ideal that sometimes when something becomes unaffordable, then you've got the inconvenience of having to move to something that is less preferable. But that is the real world, that is real life, including ministers such as Rushanara Ali. Ministers are not held to some unrealistic standard and just getting full value for their asset, obeying the rules and obeying the law, and as long as they're doing that, no problem whatsoever. And if the government and the public really want to tackle homelessness and make accommodation more affordable, then we need to pay more tax so we can bring private sector accommodation into the public sector. Then we'll charge social rents. But if you feel that your taxes are already at the tippity top, then obviously that's never going to happen. And realistically, housing in one way or another is already a massive part of the pot. And bizarrely, one of the other comments is, well, obviously I can't be a Labour person now because the homeless minister is actually a landlord. Like, that makes sense. Like, most of the Tories haven't been landlords for years and they don't pay into vested interest. So you'll pay into that trickle down, the rich get richer, whilst the poor people pay proportionately more tax. But those same people can't have a Labour minister who's also a landlord who would do exactly the same thing that most people who are landlords do, which is charge market rent. And if that person can't afford the rent, then obviously you go for the process of replacing that tenant that tenant goes off and finds somewhere else where they can afford to rent. That is the real world as we see it. It is not a political thing. It's a business thing in terms of the business of being a landlord. Am I right or wrong here? Just let me know. Am I right or wrong here? Am I reinventing the wheel? To try and link that to something that's political is bizarre. But when Labour supporters get down on themselves in this self-righteous indignation, which means we are basically at war with ourselves on a principle of stupidity, handing victory to the other side on some bullshit. Is that what we want to do? Is that where we're heading on this and many other things? I mentioned about the economy in a different video. This man who's got agreements with our main trading partners, US and Europe, that's over 50% of our trade. And he's got preferential deals with both of them. But of course, that's not enough. Then what is enough? If the big things aren't enough, then the little things are more than enough for us to kind of turn our heads. Oh, come on, let's be serious. Anyway, interesting to know your thoughts. What would you do, or what do you think the average person would do if you were gifted a property right now? Are you looking at the market rate minus whatever percentage, or would you be charging whatever the market rate is? And realistically, anybody who can't afford it will go to an area they can afford, and they'll be going for the market rate there, realistically. Let me know your thoughts. Please remember to click the like button. Please remember to click the subscribe button if you want more insightful content. That is Steve, and I'm out.